Why did Siamese rulers trust their safety to women for centuries? On the island of Phuket, besides the famous Buddha statue, there is another monument that is especially revered by locals. The monument is dedicated to the national heroines, Sisters Chan and Mook. They were born into a noble princely family. They are considered the saviors of Siam, as Thailand was called at that time. In 1785, the next Siamese-Burmese War began, called the War of the Nine Armies because Burma gathered a lot of troops to attack Siam once again. And it so happened that at that time there was not even a governor-general in the north of Phuket. The previous one died, a new one had not yet been appointed, and there was no one to deal with the defense as such. The Burmese king, Bodopaya, sent almost 150,000 soldiers to attack. A powerful landing party approached the shores of Phuket by ships. The aristocratic sisters Chan and Mook had to mobilize the militia. To protect the island, they resorted to a trick. They ordered all the women to cut their hair, put on military clothes, and march on the seashore so that it would be clearly visible. Burmese scouts assumed that the number of Siamese troops significantly exceeded the information they had, and considered that an attack would lead to almost complete destruction of the Burmese army. Thus, the Burmese were forced to leave. For saving the island, the sisters received awards from the King of Siam. In general, in this country, women have long played an important role in protecting state power. Even before the start of the Burmese-Siamese War, the monarch's guard began to be formed from girls. Girls aged 13 were recruited into the guard, and they retired at 25. A special unit for the protection of the first person was called Krom-Klon. Special requirements were imposed on the guards. They were strong, disciplined, fearless, and beautiful. Krom-Klon is a specially trained armed female detachment that defended both the outer perimeter of the palace and the inner chambers. And they were in fact something like the police. Yes, that is, they monitored order and the implementation of all decrees and the internal rules of life in the palace, because we understand that the palace is not only members of the royal family, but also a large number of courtiers. And their purpose was, among other things, to guard the inner chambers, which were not accessible to anyone. By the 19th century, the Krom-Klon detachment already numbered 400 girls armed with muskets. They guarded palaces, accompanied the king during official visits, walks, and hunting. And they were also taught how to act in case of popular unrest. Upon entering the service, they gave a vow of chastity. But, by the way, the king could well choose a future wife from among them. And British historian Michael Smithies wrote that it was actually an elite police force, acting as an army. The women's squad, which received the unofficial name Palace Amazons, was disbanded only in the last century. It existed for at least 300 years. However, similar cases, when women took up arms and became a formidable military force, have been known since antiquity. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus, in particular, wrote about the legendary Amazons. According to Greek authors, more than 300 accounts of Amazons have survived from antiquity. As a rule, they were associated with barbarians who lived in the steppes of the northern Black Sea region or in Asia Minor. But the special role of these warlike women was reflected, for example, in the legend of the Sauromations, who descended from the marriage of Amazons and Scythian youths. Until the beginning of the 20th century, many scientists believed that the stories about the Amazons in the writings of ancient researchers were just a myth. But archaeological excavations of ancient burial mounds prove that there is a grain of truth in the legends about women warriors. Female burials with weapons are a phenomenon, let's say, that extends to almost the entire early Iron Age of the Eurasian steppes. That is, in fact, from the Far East to Europe, right up to the Danube. Archaeologists were very surprised when they found not only gold jewelry, but also weapons near the remains of women. The warriors were buried with daggers, swords, and large quivers of arrows. These were iron and bronze arrowheads in fairly large quantities. In one of the burials, there may have been a whole quiver with these arrows and finds of light darts, throwing spears, which we find in female burials. In several cases, these darts were broken and placed on the chest and in the legs area. In one case, there was a short sword in the burial. Darts, blowguns, and machetes were in the arsenal of the only female army whose existence is confirmed by photographs. We are talking about the Dahomey Amazons. Dahomey was the name of an African state, which in the 19th century was located in the west of the continent, in the territory of present-day Benin and Togo. Still, the West African coast is the slave coast, and men were systematically driven into slavery for centuries. There is evidence that approximately 14 million strong young men gradually left these territories year after year. Therefore, there was simply no one to serve at home, in the army and in the armed forces, to protect the king and for other military needs. The Dahomey warriors had great political authority in the state, and this greatly surprised enlightened Europeans who, for some reason, came to the African state. In the old world at that time, women did not even have the right to vote. The very idea of gender equality came into the lives of the Amazons and into the lives of these tribes in Dahomey from the religious cult of Mawulisa. This is a single entity that has both male and female embodiments. Thus, it was obvious to everyone there that no spirit, no deity could exist without the feminine principle, without feminine energy, without the feminine component. The Amazons from Dahomey were called Mino, which in the African Fon language means our mothers. During the hunt, seemingly fragile ladies felled elephants, and this says a lot about their skills and courage. In our time, Israel has the most experience in hiring women into the army. Women there undergo compulsory military training and serve on an equal footing with men. By law, they can replace it with an alternative, but many become radio operators and even pilots. In the modern Israeli army, girls of conscription age from 18 to 28 years make up to one-third. Women began participating in military conflicts during the struggle for Israel's independence. This is the 50th year, 1948. They also participated in the conflict around the Suez Canal in the 50s. And in general, for an Israeli girl or for those who receive Israeli citizenship, serving in the regular army is a norm and a duty. In 2014, Norway became the first European country to pass a law introducing compulsory military service for women aged 19 to 45. 8 are selected each year from 60,000 candidates. When selecting, in addition to passing sport standards, attention is paid to education, psychological qualities, and social skills.